Good evening once again, and welcome back to Point Break. The latest US tariffs are sending ripples through global markets, and Indian startups are watching closely. From capital flows and investor sentiment to supply chains and exports, the impact could reshape how founders build and scale. To break this down, we're joined by three esteemed people: Shyam Menon, partner at Bharat Innovation Fund; Mohit Handa, partner at Auxano Capital; and Kapil Khangaonkar, founder and CEO of Clodura.ai. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. I want to start with you, Shyam. With the US tariffs happening on the Indian exports, we kind of want to assess what has been the impact on the startup side. So, why don't we just begin with you?
A lot of companies that are selling products from India, from startup space, whether it is software or not, they're selling to corporates in the US. Now, if the cost structure, the costs that the US companies are going to face are going to increase because of the tariffs globally that have been, that have happened now, what it can mean is they will reduce costs elsewhere. If they have to bear a higher cost of input, then they will look to reduce their discretionary spend on other things. So this itself can actually lead to a reduction in terms of software spend and whole bunch of different things because of the fact that their costs of incoming input materials has gone up. Now, also you can also counter argue that outsourcing can increase on that in that context because you'd much rather get a lower cost software service from India. But regardless, if the customers in the US side are in retail or logistics or manufacturing and they see their costs rise, then their interest in buying things from startups elsewhere, or companies elsewhere will reduce because they have lesser, money to spend. So what we are realizing is there is a lot of second order, third order impact, which is not visible today, but which can become visible over time if this continues, beyond the first order impact of the actual hardware physical goods that are being shipped from India to the US, which will anyway get affected. But so we are also looking closely at what will happen in the second and third order impact as well.
Got it. Thank you, Shyam. I want Mohit to come in over here from Auxano Capital. So the second and third impact that Shyam has been referring to, how do you think this has been affecting on the AI startup front particularly?
Totally in sync with Shyam, what he said. Primarily because as an
Mohit, are you
Auxano,
there?
we still believe and we have been in a growth stage companies which are more primarily home driven, home consumption and all, but definitely the secondary and
I
tertiary
think
impact
Mohit
is
is
going to
not
come.
audible.
Even as small as companies. Am I audible? Okay. Even in as small as companies where we have invested into a robotics and all, the secondary impact is definitely going to come because of whether it is a chips or whether
Mohit,
it is
just to hold on to that, I
So-
think we're having a little audio problem. I'd just like to switch to Kapil for the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
thanks, thanks, Vandana, for having us here. A pleasure to be here. So I actually agree with Shyam. The second order, third order impacts definitely will be seen. Like for example, from SME perspective, from SaaS perspective, at least we don't have a direct impact because SaaS does not come right now under the tariffs plan. But our customers definitely will be hit if we are catering to the industries that are getting impacted, fisheries, like you said, electronics, and all the other things. I personally have a little bit of a different opinion on this. The whole reason why the tariffs were basically introduced was first we all know the geopolitical scenario which is going on right now. Already a lot of goods have been shipped in, because the tariffs were going to increase. So a lot of people have already pre-order or pre-exported goods much in advance, almost 6 months in advance. I personally feel the tariffs probably won't stick around for 6 months. They will probably cancel that. Looking at the nature of the way the tariffs have been put on some countries and removed within a night's notice, I feel they should be removed before we actually start seeing the real impact on the ground.
Got it. If we could just switch to Mohit, if the audio has been corrected. Mohit, if you could just continue that conversation on what is your take on the AI startup impact that we're having?
Uh, I'll repeat. I said, starting with the
Sure.
business, when we talk about AI or any product,
Mohit, yeah, Mohit, we'll just come back to you. I'd just like to go back to Shyam again. So we're speaking about how AI startups can maybe not have a huge impact, but say in terms of the client trust and the hardware costs that are kind of going to be rising with this whole effect, what do
Yeah.
you think can happen from this?
See, I mean, that's a very good point, Vandana. So if you assume that the Mag 7 or whatever, let's say the cloud providers. Now, the cloud providers need to buy chips, need to buy hardware infra. Now, there is a tariff, no matter what the level, at every country, pretty much out there. So whether it is Taiwan, Korea, whatever, right? And so if they're going to buy the hardware infra from these countries, the costs are going to be going up for them. Now, eventually, how much ever they subsidize today, that cost will also flow down the tube to the companies in India and everywhere else in the world. Their SaaS cost, their cloud costs will go up for a SaaS company here if this stays on for a long time. So, because if the costs are going to rise for the hardware that is required to build up all of these data centers, etc., if that basic cost structure is going to rise because every single thing is not made in the US, they are buying so many things from elsewhere. And there is a tariff impact for all of the stuff that they're buying from different countries. It may not be 50%, but it is ranging anywhere from 15-20% all the way 30-40 percent. So because that cost eventually will flow down, so who will bear it? So yeah, end of the day, even that cloud cost, etc., if this goes for a long time, will affect everybody. But hopefully, I mean, as Kapil said, I mean, this if this does not last, I mean, if this is resolved relatively quickly, the second, third order impacts may not be that relevant, But if it stays for a long time, then definitely all of these increased costs will have to flow somewhere, and eventually, startups in India to consumers in the US, everybody will have to bear the brunt of this. And if the consumers in the US, for example, have to eventually bear the brunt of this in terms of inflation because costs are rising for everything there, then their discretionary spend drops. When that drops, then naturally a lot of the stuff that the world is trying to sell to them, that will also, will reduce because their discretionary spend drops. So there is eventually a lot of impact if this stays on for a long time. But if it's a short term thing, then it's manageable.
Got it, got it. And Kapil, who's the founder and CEO of Clodura, I mean, your customers are in India and the US. Uh, do you see any challenge in now the scaling aspect of it? Like you have to overcome new kinds of barriers.
Uh, yeah, so basically, as I said, see, SaaS is right now not
Right.
directly affected by this. Having said that, our customers definitely are. But again, I mean, everybody's right now looking, probably taking 1 week at a time kind of a situation, where nobody really knows what's going to be a situation 1 week down the lane. So everybody's little defensive. Nobody wants to spend a lot right now because it's extremely uncertain. Uh, People want to shift from higher cost value products to probably a little lesser value, lesser cost products, which gives us a very good opportunity in that sense. So it's basically about finding a little bit of opportunity in the chaos kind of a situation for everyone. Reduce your costs as much as you can under the whole umbrella right now, and then see if you can save it somewhere else. Everybody's a little defensive, but hopefully it will clear out very soon.
Got it. Just going to Mohit. Yeah. So, yeah. Hi, Mohit. Sorry. I mean, I think there was an audio problem there, but Mohit, if you're here right now. So, from a VC lens, now with these current tariff push that you're having, would you see a bigger bet on India first markets and not probably non-US markets?
We have been very optimistic about India, Vanna. It's not that because of these tariffs only. We have been always talking about how India is placed now in the region. The globalization definitely will go into a little polarization. Most formed MFN, these all treaties will start happening. You have seen now India UK treaty happening up, India Australia happening up. So India as a focal point and India is a story to be, definitely there is no impact on it. If you see a different side of the coin, I'll say perhaps this is a huge opportunity for India. Here we are a 1.2, 1.3 billion population. We still are not export so oriented as a China is. So India's story remains. I don't think anybody in the VC world today will say yes, a resilience by sector can change. That yes, from our lens of saying that is it a tariff impacted by or not. But sometimes I agree that tariff won't last long. It'll always cause a ripple impact. So coming back there, I totally believe and 100% we at Auxano believe, along with few colleagues, what we talk about India story hold. We have LPs across globe and similarly the same story. So it is not that people are vigilant. It's only that few questions have started coming up in our new investments, that what sector is that sector heavily dependent, which was not so much. But overall, I'll say India story remains. And Bharat is the place to be in. That's what we have been saying. For the next 1 decade, at least for the next 5 years, we are absolutely in. We may have ups and downs, but we are totally buoyant to take a next leap.
Got it. And also anything on the current, say, Prime Minister Modi's visit to Japan, the kind of collaboration that we're having there. We are sort of being more reliant of having more stronger partnerships outside US. How would that in any way shape the whole VC ecosystem and how they look at investing in startups here?
I'll say that the best things what has happened up now, you see, we started with that the brick should not be there, the dollar should be the main currency in. But now what's happening is the regional players are coming up together. Indian companies are finding up the new markets. There are alternatives to the funding happening from UAE to Southeast Asia to the Europe side. Europe itself is looking forward. Everybody has increased their defense budget, but where they go? They can't go to the US. So it automatically India is placed to be. China is still hesitant because of all the discussions on geopolitical. So I think with the ties happening of Mr. Modi traveling to Japan, traveling to China, and all geopolitical things happening up, India is in a favored condition to be. No doubts on India's story.
Great, great. And then going to Shyam. So again, just a continuation of the same question. Now, collaborations happening with different countries, kind of strengthening the bonds there. In your current portfolio, the clients that you have, how much of portion are from the US? How much of it is from India? And do you foresee a shift happening from here?
Yeah, it's actually a very good point. So, what we've been working on vigorously, honestly, over the last at least couple of months, few months, is actually trying to increase the business that our portfolio startups are doing, especially with rest of Asia and Europe. So if you look at our portfolio, I would say, I mean, say 30-40% of the business across, because it's a deep tech enterprise B2B portfolio. We don't have a consumer facing portfolio. It's very deep tech heavy. So here, inevitably 30-40% of the business was coming from the US. Now, because we are looking for even more and more interaction with Japan, with Korea, with Europe. So we are seeing, a lot more interest actually over the last few months for that ecosystem to get way more robust going forward, because all the countries have realized that they don't want this extremely heavy dependence on the US. So every country's ecosystem of corporates and startups also want to actually grow from a resilience perspective, they also want to source from different places. So what we are seeing is in this new geopolitical environment, every country actually wants to diversify its sources from which they can do business, whether it is buy components or sell into. It doesn't matter either way. So we are seeing a lot more interest from players across Europe, in Japan, in Korea, even Southeast Asia, from Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, all of these places, Vietnam. I mean, all of these places now we are seeing a lot more interest in engaging, looking at what our portfolio is doing. And Middle East, for example, was always active, but we are seeing even more business now coming from the Middle East. So it's very interesting actually how the rest of the world will probably do a lot more business going forward. Whereas for so long, if you look from the enterprise B2B world, every country used to focus on first their domestic market to some extent and then automatically to the US. But now it is more domestic. Of course, US will anyway be there, but let's do a lot more with the rest of the countries in the ecosystem. So in Asia, for example, take a country like Australia. I mean, we actually, the interface number of startups and the work that startups in India do within Australia is still relatively minimal. But we are seeing more interest now from entities there in engaging, looking at what startups in India are doing, figuring out if they can be relevant for what's happening there. So a lot more engagement between Japan, Korea, Australia, which is very good, Europe, Middle East, etc. So overall, I think from a resiliency perspective, every country is trying to increase its resiliency. And I think that will bode well for companies in India as well going forward. Everyone will look to do a lot more business with each other, and rather than be wholly dependent from an export perspective or broadly dependent on the US, it'll shift to a lot more other countries.
Got it. Got it. And if Kapil could just come in and tell me, like, post these kind of conversations on tariffs that are happening, have you noticed any visible shift in the behavior from your, say, your US customers? I mean, do they have apprehensions? Do they want to know what's next? Or anything that might be hampering your operations? Or it's just like normal? There's no change at all?
So there is definitely impact that we can see. The customers who are probably getting affected from the purchase of these goods will definitely think twice before now making any decisions on that part. There is also a lot of chatter about if so the whole world essentially has taken US for granted for a long time, right? Like US as a market is always number one for everyone. And we all assume that it's going to be there every time. It's not going anywhere. Now everyone is, like Shyam rightly said, everyone is forced to think about alternatives. This is sort of a big opportunity for everyone, a blessing probably in disguise, where even if this stays for 3 to 6 months onwards and people are able to find out other resources, it's all going to benefit everyone. It might hit a few industries right now because of course, the employment problems and the cash problem and everything else, where government is now stepping in to actually help them. But if we are able to find out alternative solutions, like we went to Japan, we now have UK trade deals, we are also doing Australia. We as a company also started doing Australia as a first market after US now. So if you're able to figure out other alternatives, two things will happen typically. One is if US again opens up as it was open earlier, we will have more buyers for the same product. So either we can sell it at a higher price, or else we probably can sell more to other countries than we were not doing before. So I think in the long term, it will work out better. In short term, everyone will face the impact.
Got it. And Mohit, I just want you to come in. If you can tell me about, say, if any customer stories or examples that you can share where post the tariff discussions, again, what kind of apprehensions, what are the problems that your customers are having? Like if it's just more of a fear mongering that's kind of setting in.
So, since, as I said, we do not have a company which is directly focused or directly impacted by US tariff, because a lot is towards the India focused stories, because we believe in India. But still, when we discuss with few of the companies who have an export business, a sizable, not much, but still they are apprehensive. But as Kapil said, they are not, because the big thing which is coming is perhaps these tariffs will stay, not for a longer time. That's the first point. Second is definitely the markets of, if they have into the products, they have been shipping it left, right, center earlier. So the product pipelines are already there. They find this as an opportunity to expand into Southeast Asia as well as into China and European countries, which are more friendly now. Europe was the one which was to launch a new product is always used to be a challenge, but they feel now with Italy, Spain, and all, they are more open to launch it. One of our few companies which are into meat, sometimes we find more favorable acceptance from UK because it's a UK FTA happening up, the talks are happening across. So that's a little I can talk about from our portfolio. But I do not see sentiments or pessimistic coming up because of this tariff coming up. People are gearing up. They are finding alternatives, except that the supply chain disruptions are to happen up. So it's basically the cost realization, cost saving exercises, finding more alternatives are the discussions what we have with our founders.
Got it.
That's
Got it.
from Auxano side.
All right, Mohit, thank you. Just kind of bringing a conclusion to this whole discussion. Can each of you all just elaborate on what's that one policy or ecosystem shift that India needs most to cushion startups from tariff shocks? This is again continuation to what Shyam had spoken about the alternative solution. So from each of you all, I would just like you guys to elaborate on that.
Sure, I can.
Oh, no, please, Shyam, go ahead.
Thanks. But yeah, I mean, very simply, I think the government's doing it in a very clear fashion by deciding to support a lot of sectors, full on. So whether it is, I mean, if you look at the semiconductor mission or the IDEX defense mission or the biotech grants that we have for, through BIRAC for startups in that space, to the national quantum mission. I mean, so many spaces, especially in the deep tech side that we operate in, the government's come out with huge amount of support at early stage startup level, and then eventually going on to, design linked and production linked incentives. So and most importantly than even all of this, they've actually become the first buyer of the final product. So Government of India, in fact, through all of its ministries and agencies, has become a phenomenal early buyer for many of these technology companies as well. So I think they are doing everything and more than you can expect from a government anywhere in the world, and they are supporting all of this ecosystems very strongly. And of course, with the new GST rules, etc., they're making it even easier, hopefully, for a lot more business to happen here. So whether you take consumer or whether you take deep tech, the space we operate in every space, the Government of India is offering a lot more support to startups, support for manufacturing, support for domestic, production for everything, space tech, you name it, quantum, cybersecurity, defense tech, all of these spaces, and is becoming the first buyer. And this is a complete sea change from how things used to be even less than a decade ago, where if we saw that a company would have government as a first buyer, it was something that we would be initially worried about, because you never know timelines for payment, this, that, and the other. But now it's actually changed quite significantly. In almost every single tender, there is an allocation for startups to also bid for it. So for a bid for product projects, and portion of the tender is almost set aside for startups. And this is amazing. I mean, because this will help create a local robust ecosystem of tech companies here with an early set of customers. Through that process, the product itself gets more stabilized and becomes ready for the larger private sector market in India. And eventually, however this shakes out, post the domestic market anyway, everyone will want to go global. And if the resiliency of and the trading between all the countries in the world will now increase, thanks to the recent geopolitics, where everybody is looking for resiliency and options for sourcing from different places, I think in the end, startups in India will actually be a bigger winner at the end of all of this, because you have a resilient domestic market and you have a much larger global market than what we had so far, which was honestly very US centric in terms of the export market for deep tech. I think it is becoming way more global. So net, I think it's positive, and Government of India is doing a lot I mean, honestly, I can't even imagine what we can ask them to do more than this in terms of what they're already offering.
Got it, sure. So the sense is it's pretty much like shock proof. We don't really, I mean, the startups are not really affected by the current discussion, right? I mean, that's what more or less the sense is.
I mean, it depends on what they're doing. I mean, if you're working in gems and jewelry, certain kind of area, and where you are fully dependent on export or something like that, yeah, you're probably definitely affected. But if most startups are tech startups doing software, which services side, this has not been affected in any case generally by the tariffs. So, I mean, most of them are okay. I mean, they're not affected. But again, it depends on what it is that they're making, right? I mean, if you're making a physical good and you're shipping it, naturally tariffs are going to affect you. But most of them should be okay. And as long as the second, third order impacts don't happen because of overall increase in prices for a long term, if this tariff stuff is still temporary, then I think we'll all bounce back much stronger in the end. But you never know how long this can go on, so there's no way to fully predict how it will play out.
Got it. Thank you, Shyam. The same question for Mohit on what could be the policy or the ecosystem shift that we can have to shock-proof the impact. I think we've lost Mohit again on the audio front. We'll just move to Kapil then. Kapil, again, like you said, I mean, you operate a lot on the SaaS space or the software space where that might not be primarily affected at the moment. But do you see if in the future or if there are going to be more changes that can happen, what do you think could be an alternative solution or say a shift that the government can do to protect startups?
Yeah, so I'm a sales guy, so I'm going to tell you from sales perspective probably here. I think two things probably would be very good. I see a lot of tech startups specifically who are not considering India as their primary market right now. Everyone who wants to start selling in US on the first day. And that has been working for a few companies as well. So there's nothing wrong in that. But I think it's high time that we start customizing our solutions or offerings to fit India as a market first. So that I think is a push. If that happens by force or by however it is, I think that will be a very good initiative because a lot of consumers will find, inside India itself who can consume the products and goods. And second is if the government is actually doing a lot of things on, the GST front and all these other things, probably a pathway to open, into Australia region or a UAE, which is probably the closest for us, the nearest island philosophy, basically. We have APAC, which is very close to us. All these, close countries for us where we have more sort of ethnic commonality as well. There, if we can get a push in one way or the other, that I think will be a fantastic move from the government side as well. Apart from again everything else that they are doing already, like Shyam said.
Got it. So pretty much the conversation has been on, depending on what sector it is, that's where the impact lies, like Shyam called out. Because right now with the current situation, maybe we don't see a huge of an impact, but what we probably see is more collaboration and probably better for India. I mean, I'm sure that you gentlemen would agree on that bit, right?
Yes, I think in the long
Absolutely.
run, this is a good thing. I mean, yeah, it will be good for everybody in the long run, but in the short run, there might be pain.
Got it.
It's that kind of a bitter medicine that everyone has to swallow right now. But hopefully it will do good for our health in the long term.
Okay, got it. Thanks, Shyam. Just checking if Mohit is online, if the audio part has been corrected. Any closing remarks from Mohit? Yeah. All right. Sure. I think we lost Mohit on the audio. Well, okay. Thank you, Shyam, Mohit, and Kapil for taking the time to speak to us. Thank you for this very insightful and diverse thoughts and discussions that we had. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vandana.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, that was a very diverse and insightful discussion. I mean, pretty much the conversation has been that the impact might not be too high right now on the startup front, considering how, depending on the sector that they're belonging to. And with the current condition of how this is not affecting the software or the SaaS market at the present, we might not be seeing a huge impact, but we never know what's going to happen in the future. Well, thank you all for tuning in. That's all we have on this episode of Point Break. Please don't forget, think AI, think AIM, and I'll be back soon next weekend. Thank you.